portrayed as a problem to who you usually know who's telling that story. And once a certain group has full control over the narrative for too long, we just have to question it. We can't sit here and just
No,
take
you
it.
see that because my one of my issues with what you're saying is that it goes back into uh who even took the time to retweet this shit? It goes back into like a philosophical thing about what's it called? Uh, fuck about that it goes back into like some type of identity politics type shit, like basically oppression of a certain gender over time. Like it kind of sounds like the I might not be saying this right. It kind of sounds like the feminist argument over like the treatment of women in society. Whereas
which
like
is which is valid,
it's not
which is
completely valid.
which is
I am
the base
strongly
the basic
I
the basic
strongly disagree
argument
with feminist claims of the 21st century.
the basic argument is valid. People like to argue about semantics. It's like
No, the basic.
it's
What basic argument are they making?
the basic argument is an argument of fairness and equality. I get what you did.
I'm
Done.
asking you, what argument are they making?
That's what I just told you. It's a fairness, equality. The treatment.
Fairness
It's
in it,
about fairness and equality. It's
fairness and
about. It's
equality,
about.
right?
It's basically saying the scale is tipped, and we need to figure out ways to tip it back over. Now,
In my
what you're gonna do, and what everyone does,
mhm.
is they're gonna go into, because it's a revolution, right? The revolution is what happens when a portion of the population decides that things need to be done a certain way, and the power structure is not going to agree with it, so they're going to fuck shit up. That's what a revolution is.
Okay.
And when a revolution happens, the core idea of the revolution usually makes sense. And then as the fighting happens, because there will be fighting, there are going to be excesses. And what the power structure is going to do is that it's going to zero in on what's excessive and use it against the original point, because the reality is that the power structure is afraid of the original point because it's afraid of losing power.
You see,
And now tell me
that's
about the
identity.
excesses.
That's identity politics at its highest level, right? Because it's
Well,
you have to understand that the ability that anybody even has today to argue any type of uh, power structure uh, or like mistreatment or anything is based on the fact that whatever power structure has existed has has breathed the freedom and ability for anybody that exists to complain. Let's for example pick countries such as the ones where we're from, for example, right? Those power
yeah,
structure
yeah.
those power structures haven't created the ability for people to openly complain about such things. For example, like how many women do you think can back home can behave like Pussy Riot, do you think? Like go against politicians and
like
put blood on them, like show up
well,
naked.
in that specific case, it's a whole society. It's not just the women. You can't go home and say whatever you want. I can't go home and say and do whatever I want.
That's
This
what
is
I'm
it's
saying.
not. I don't even. I think it's difficult to keep that as an argument in the conversation we're having, because in the problem we have in these countries isn't specific to this issue.
You have to see that in the countries where the power structure, right, is
Yeah.
still oppressive to women, that the women are not even expressing these things. The countries that have allowed so much facility for all their citizens is the country are the countries where people are comfortable enough to even complain.
Yeah. So, but what's your point?
My point is those people are oblivious to the type of progress that they're being part of and asking society to move much faster than it understands. right? And they don't understand all the factors that are involved
Yeah, of
uh,
course, but there's not
creating the reality that they're benefiting from.
there's always going to be an issue with the pace at which progress is happening, and that revolutionaries want things to happen a lot quicker than they can. That's real, and that's going to keep happening, and that's not even really your problem. I'll tell a radical or revolutionary that whatever you're thinking about or whatever you want to make happen is probably not going to happen in your lifetime. It's probably not going to happen the way you want it to happen, but I'm not going to take away from them that it is their role to fight in that way. I'm not mad at them. I'm not
No, no,
arguing with them.
yeah.
I'm not even arguing with them on what they're fighting for. I might try to understand it, I might question it, but that's what their role is. This is who helps. I think all progress happens at the intersection of what is, what should be, and there are people who act and function according to what should be, and people who function according to what is, and some people caught in the middle. The mix of all that creates progress because we can't help but evolve, sometimes for the worse. Now, the when you talk about when you talk about societies in which, for example, we can't say the things that we could, for example, say here in the U.S. or do in the U.S. or even in France or the U.K. or whatever the hell, like the contrast that there is between these countries and the countries that we come from, it doesn't need to be the main argument. And if it is the argument, we know that you judge a society, you judge the quality of a society by the way in which it treats its most vulnerable members. So we have a lot of fucking work to do. If there's anything that comes out of looking at the contrast, is we have a lot of fucking work to do, which still doesn't help the point that the people who are requesting, the minorities who are requesting the things they're requesting, are wrong for requesting it. Their methods might not always be good. Some of them might be extreme, but the core argument is valid.
This is where me I'm the way I position myself in the argument is usually that I'll argue for the position that's being argued for the least, right? In these issues are continual conversations, right? It's not because the position that, for example, the person who's at a disadvantage today may be arguing, that it's not going to come to a situation of bam, we've reached that ultimate solution. Because, for example, like if we look at the numbers, there's more girls who've been graduating with higher education, higher jobs in the past few years than men, right? But the way these arguments are being made, for example, is that we if it's being convoluted, if I'm making any sense, right? We're convoluting, for example, because we started the conversation at females, right? The rights of females, or like the way they're being perceived by these archaic stories that we're told, right?
Right.
And then there's also, but then the rights of female in our day and age have been mixed with the rights of queers, have been mixed, I mean the whole LGBT community, right? And has been mixed with the rights of immigrants. Ooh, my my
Well, it's
my
well,
fingers
it's not
look
even
wrinkly as
well.
fuck.
Well, it's not even that complicated. They're human rights.
No, 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 no,
Yes,
no, no, no,
yes they
no, no,
are.
no, no,
Yes
no,
they
no, no,
are.
no.
They're
This
human
is this
rights.
is the problem with people who want progress. They don't understand that it's a give and take. There are things that you will have to sacrifice to gain those new benefits. But most people who require progress think that it's a full addition of a new set of benefits. No. For example, the dude who's going to make $20 million a year is not going to have the same freedoms as the same duties as the dude who's going to make $200 million a year, right? For example, we have certain family dynamics in poor countries, such as the ones that we're from, that will disappear if our countries reach a certain level of wealth. There's a good reason why the countries that have like a certain level of development, don't have the same family dynamics, have some systemic changes in their culture. And it's the same thing at individual level or at the level of communities. For example, let's say women want to be paid more in the in the job market, for example, right? That means they're going to have to spend less time with their families. That means they're going to have to spend more time at work. That means they're going to have to compete. That means they're going to have to suffer at a family level. Most successful men you know of the highest level of success possible have shit family life. But what I have personally noticed from a lot of, for example, people in a lot of female movements is that they are asking the ability to be paid by like a dude who will work till 2 a.m. in the morning, even late in his 40s, 50s, as them who will take off of work at least for a year every 5 years, maybe for those that want to have children, right?
For what? Well, well,
Like,
the what's
yes,
the
you're doing something that's important to society and that's important to yourself, but it's not that important to the industry or the business that you're in. Therefore, you will lose in that department if you choose to go
therefore,
that way.
but that's when we need to question the business. That's when we need to question
No,
the
not
industries.
at
Yes,
all. Not at
yes,
all.
yes,
Because
yes. It is
the truth is,
because at the end of the day, if you have industries that are functioning, right, and then the rest of society, whether it's their employees or the because we're talking about the human condition here. Like we're talking about the way human beings are treated,
yeah.
and 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 at the end of the day, every time we get to a place where we put profitability or production
Yeah.
over the human condition, we're doing something wrong. There's a difference
No, no,
between
no.
pushing it, working hard, and
That's
developing resilience.
that's a
And
matter that sorry to interrupt. That's a matter of perspective, right? Because all these way of lives have been competing for centuries now. Capitalism has not been the is not the first ideological system to run a nation, right?
right,
Socialism is not the only one, but all these ideas have been competing worldwide, and the ones that could not sustain the test of time or culture have disappeared. Capitalism exists right now because it fits us most. It's not the best. Working for production is not the best, but it is the one that has been functioning. Now, we want to uphold the sovereignty of human beings, but in practice, people behave according to their personal interest and benefits. That's why most people will talk to you about all these idealistic ideas, but they will get a regular job in a bank. That's why Christians will tell you about all these ideas about turn the cheek, give money to the poor, but they work in the same banks that deny people loans. It's because in reality, in ideologically speaking, we want to treat people better. But in practice, what has been working is this. Because if the ideas of the sovereignty of the individual and upholding these values were the ones we truly believe, non-profit organizations would be the most profitable businesses on earth because they offer you that flexibility. They are understanding. You're only supposed to come there if you truly feel like contributing, right? But unfortunately, they're not the most profitable. I mean, they're not the ones uh, that are incentivizing people to create a world that's easier for all of us. Whereas the greed of businessmen, the greed of bankers, though it is extremely dangerous, has created people who are so motivated by profit that they're willing to come up with innovations. Whereas in the other setting where we're just hoping for people's goodwill, they're not incentivized to innovate. They're not incentivized to make this world a better place. The dude who created tampons for women or condoms did not do that out of the goodness of his heart. He, I mean, maybe the guy who created it did it out of the goodness of his heart. But the one who was able to distribute it to all women in the world, that was a greedy capitalist. If I mean, I know that was very long-winded, but I hope I make some sense.
No, I like letting people finish before I destroy their arguments. I like letting people finish before I destroy their points. It gives me time to
Go
think about
ahead,
what I'm gonna
sir.
say next.
I'll be
Nah, but
working on my comeback.
yeah, nah. I hear what you're saying, and the thing that people are saying, the things that people are saying about the way capitalist societies are supposed to drive people make some levels of sense. But I think we have a complete misconception of what when it comes
Dude,
how we can guarantee that human beings stay driven, right? One of the biggest problems I have with the way we defend systems that have shown some level of some positive outcomes for a certain amount of time is that we forget that we're supposed to challenge those systems. We're supposed to look at something that has worked for a certain amount of time and decide and observe what's not working with it and start making the changes. Because now we know how to maintain a profitable version of society, right? We have a sense of what needs to happen and what can be done. We have, like, for example, you take something like the church. There was a time when the church and various religious organizations that ended up being oppressive systems because human beings are pieces of shit. Um, there was a time when they were needed
yeah.
to enforce morality, to give people, to draw the line. We needed them to draw some kind of line, and then eventually the line the church was doing, like the line the church was the line the church was drawing was outweighed by the bad that came from maintaining that system. So the system was challenged, and it was reformed, and something else grew out of it. And that's what needs to happen with the version of capitalism that we have right now, right? When we get to a place where a system is not working for the people who live in it, it's time to change that system.
So you believe capitalism is not working?
I didn't say it's not. I didn't say it wasn't working. It's a very interesting way you put that question.
No, no.
I said I
I'm
said
asking
I
because I don't
said
know if
I
that's what
said
you said.
no. I said it's not working for the people who live in it. Capitalism benefits a very specific percentage of the human population. We have to be real. We have to be real on
Okay,
that.
who are the people who are not benefiting from it?
Do you walk outside?
No. I do. Trust me, I do walk outside and I do see everything that's going on. Like, and it's not that I think capitalism is just the best thing in the world. No, I think it's extremely flawed. But I'm just asking.
Capitalism is a system that is built to work on that is built to function on exploitation. Is
Okay,
built to work that way,
okay.
and it has worked as a system for what it's worth. It has worked as a system, and it has generated an amount of wealth that is considerable, and that we can't ignore that. But now the wealth it has generated gives us the opportunity to question the way we treat each other,
Okay.
because we are in the most abundant period in human history.
Yeah.
Do you really believe that we're still in a place where, as a species, our biggest need is to create continuous wealth? Is it really our biggest need right now?
What would
Like
you say?
what in
What would
like
you
what
say is our biggest need right now?
our biggest need right now is to figure out better ways to redistribute what's created, was generated. We
So
have to, we have to, like, how the fuck do you function in a society where we have too much of so many things, yet so many people have so little?
okay. There's this thing in economics, right? The a fundamental, a foundational idea in economics that every man rises in society according to the height of his ambition, right?
Right.
We cannot truthfully, yes, some people get played. You get into negotiations. It's like when you go to the market, right? You can be well informed, the seller may be well informed, but when you get into negotiations, one of you is going to lose, right? And we agree that we live in a world where some people are better negotiators than others, right?
Yeah.
So it's my way of making the point that there will be people who give more effort than others, even whether or not there are incentives, right? There are these You have these friends that no matter what situation they are in, you put them somewhere, they're going to find something to do. And then you have these other friends, no matter how much comfort they have, you put them somewhere, they're about to sit on their ass and scream that they're hungry. How do you redistribute resources equally? Do you give to the dude that is
You
going to
have
work like crazy the same level of resource as the dude who's going to sit on his ass?
no, but we have to agree. We have to agree on we have to agree on guaranteeing basic element that came from maintaining
Like
that
for
system.
example,
So the system was
you're looking
challenged and
at
it
you're
was
looking
reformed,
at
and
something
something else
as
grew out of it.
popular as
And that's what
the.
needs. Wait, where's that coming from?
Yeah, no, no. I was trying to. There's
Nigga, you out
somebody
here,
who's been commenting, and I'm trying to figure out how to make her jump into this in this live.
you out here googling yourself, my nigga.
Come on, man. You know how narcissism works.
Oh my God! But not even when you look at something as basic as uh, uh, like at like our pyramid of needs, right?
Yeah.
Like the Maslow one that anybody that has to study economics for more than 5 minutes knows about.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Maslow hierarchy.
it's like, oh, I know things.
You
Nah,
don't
but
know nothing,
nah, but
Mitch.
very certain, nah, very like there are basic things that we
Yeah.
need to be able to guarantee as a society now, like people being able to feed, clothe, and house themselves is a basic thing that should be guaranteed by now, that we can guarantee by now. Now, I'm not saying, like, for example, you come to me or to anyone with a business idea that makes sense and a business plan that makes sense with that idea. And now we get to argue about how much money we're giving you. Now we get to argue about the value of your ideas and the value of your efforts. That's separate from what should be the basic human needs from what are the basic human needs that we should be able to guarantee by now and that we can guarantee by now.
You see,
So when we get to a place where we can do that and we're not doing it, when we can afford to do it and we're not doing it, we need to start asking different questions. Because in the same example that you're taking, there are entire groups of people who are driven, who would do very interesting things if they had the resources, and these resources will never make it to them because we're using archaic black and white approaches to this thing. If you want it, if you really want it, you can get it. The reality is that for a shit ton of people, no, it's not the case. They can want it as bad as they want, they're gonna die not getting it.
no, because
Like,
it's not. It's. I mean, because this is. I think it's one of the main resources that maybe most people lack, especially in lower classes of society, right? Is though it's they neither in lower society, in lower networks of society, no, in lower classes of society, people, for example, don't have networks or solid networks. There is a lack of knowledge, for example, like organizational knowledge. There's a lack of financial resources. There's a lack of coordination. Whereas in those
mm,
higher tiers of classes, even when they don't like each other, even when they would want to kill each other, they still have mechanisms to organize themselves, to trade amongst themselves, right? These types of
Well,
what
no, no, keep going, keep going.
these types of resources are partially very important. They're not the only ones needed. In lower classes of society, the way you're told that if you give this, it's supposed to make you super successful is if you work like crazy, right? The French people say if hard work was what was necessary to be wealthy, all donkeys would be multi-billionaires, right? It's there's also a matter of worldview. There's a certain naivety in with the masses when it comes to understanding what is necessary. Your average wealthy person is not getting his information from TV. He's not getting. He's not obedient to whatever the president or the minister or whoever is saying. Most thieves, the most accomplished thieves in the world are in the upper classes. The most accomplished thugs are in the upper classes. The people in the lower classes think that by being by simply being a law-abiding citizen, it elects them to all these supposed benefits that are in culture, not in culture but in society, and they forget an important thing. Human beings are evil. These are evil people. We are evil people creating systems. We evil people do not create systems that will benefit everybody. They create systems that will help them keep, that will help them have power over others. So if you're in that system and you start complaining, you're complaining to the emptiness. You have to question your own worldviews. You have to question your own approaches. Now, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be progress, but I'm saying that the most progress there should be is in the individual, not in the collective.
That's
People,
that. See, that right there is where that right there is how power structures keep people on their knees. It's by pushing that on
by
people and
pushing
making sure.
personal responsibility.
No, because it's not just personal responsibility. It's like there's a way that, again, if you pay attention to what I've been saying from the very beginning,
Yeah.
one of the things that bothers me with those arguments is the idea that there are absolutes in the way people are supposed to act and in the way we're supposed to perceive people.
Okay.
We all in society are supposed to exist at the intersection of personal responsibility and group responsibility.
Oh,
So you, as a person who is extremely wealthy and who's making X amount of monies by doing what you're doing, you might be succeeding at everything that's supposed to benefit your personal development,
yeah.
but you are failing at so many of the things that you're supposed to do for the
Oh
development of the
yeah.
group.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, you won't hear me argue about a radical best case scenario for one group. You'll hear me argue for the sake of balance.
That's
And when things in society get to a place where we can observe that the balance is off, that's what we need to address.
this is okay. This is what I'm trying to say, right? What I'm trying to say is I completely agree with you that it's something that's happening, that's supposed to happen at both ends, right? It's a meeting at both ends between what you said, personal responsibility and group responsibility. But what I'm saying is, as an individual, for example, for me, Kofi, when I'm looking at what I can, how this problem needs to be fixed, I'm going to attack the part of the problem that I can fix first.
Right,
My responsibilities. Make sure
right.
that I get the fucking piece of wood that is in my eye before I try to take care of destroying somebody else's or society. I need to make sure that my shit is in order. right? Because I can go out there and scream at society. Like, think about it. You have a bunch of kids who are screaming at the government for not doing what it's supposed to be, and niggas don't have jobs. They're not paying any bills. They're sleeping in somebody's basement. They're doing drugs all day. They're drinking all day, and they're trying to tell the government how to manage a country where you could be doing better for yourself and bettering the immediate environment around you. And then you complaining to the government makes sense to me, right? And but
No,
that doesn't mean
we
that
can't.
that
No,
doesn't
we
mean that
can't.
authority should not be doing its work. But
We
a
can't.
flawed person should not be telling another flawed person what to fix first when you're as
That's
well a
not.
part of the problem.
That's not true because that's too easy. It's too easy to get out of that. It's too easy to get. It's too easy to get away with things when you tell people get your shit together first, and then we can have this conversation. You know what it sounds like. What it really sounds like is like in the story. You know the story of Cinderella.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the story that's written, because like I don't think it happens as a Disney story. Like she's supposed to go out, like she's trying to go out. She's trying to go to the ball, to that little reception the prince is having, trying to find himself a wife and whatnot. And she asks her sisters, or stepsisters, if she can go with them and the mom, and they're like, well, yeah, sure. Now, why don't you sort these peas before you go with us? And if you're done sorting the peas, then you can come with. No questions asked. When she goes out there and she sorts the peas, and she comes and tells them, "Hey, I did this shit. I called my little witch birds. I used my magic powers and whatnot. They came and helped me do this."
They will push the goal line.
They would push exactly, and that's what's going to keep happening. That's why you can't. That's why you can't make this the core of the argument. You can't tell people, I mean, you can, but you shouldn't tell people, uh, oh, fix your shit or get your shit together, then we can talk about what I'm not doing right, especially when, unlike them, you're responsible for the entire group.
You see, I'm not because I'm not
And
making.
then, and
I'm not.
then,
Yeah, yeah. Go
and
ahead.
then and then you have to question, because people always bring up drugs, and all of a sudden we start forgetting about the conversation that's connected to mental illness and the way people react to trauma, and especially the environments they grow up in. It's like we have to sit down and study how much of what you're calling those people's degenerate behaviors is a symptom of your inability to lead those people correctly. It's a real thing.
But you see,
It's too
that's
easy to
the
just
issue.
it's
Because
it's too easy to just say you lazy bums if you just did more.
oh
It's too
no 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 no
fucking
no no no
easy.
no. It's that's it's we the it's let's go back to the place where we both agree. We both agree that it's something that's supposed to happen at both ends, right?
Right, right.
So I don't disagree that there's oppression in systems. Systems have always been oppressive, no matter what virtue they're growing upon. And these institutions that we have are undoubtedly corrupted. There's
Right.
nothing to be said to save them, really. But I'm saying that, do you believe that going in the streets, writing posts, doing manifestations, getting people in offices is the most
Hmm.
efficient, like making noise, is how things change? Or is it people who are diligent, who are self-organized, who are disciplined, who are
Once
able
again,
to move the needle?
once again, it will happen at the intersection of the two. The people who go out there and protest and riot and scream for their rights
You
are
see,
doing it. Are doing it. Let me finish. Let me finish. Are
yeah.
doing it for the right, for the right's fault. Here's the problem with people who already function in the system. The people who function in the system and do everything the system is asking them to do will are the least likely to be disruptive, because they have shit to lose. They're a
Yeah.
part of the system. They're going to abide by what the system is asking them to do, and they're going to do the thing they've been doing for pretty much as long as they've been around. They're going to be responsible, they're going to be disciplined, and they're going to take care of what they need to take care of. It's going to work for them to various extents, and it's going to work for the system, and it's going to maintain the system. The people who question the system and who are going to help change that system for the better are the people who are disruptive, because what they'll do, they'll be out there protesting, right? They'll be out there doing what they'll be out there screaming for their rights, and maybe after that they'll go home and smoke gin, not do shit for the next 4 days, because that's who you were talking about. But they did their fucking job as members of society because you saw them on your way to work. And now your boss is going to start acting it's going to act exactly how they've been acting towards you the entire time, but you're going to start noticing shit. You're going to be like, damn, these crazy motherfuckers out there weren't entirely wrong. They made a point. They made a point. Let's say, for example, you're a person talking about microaggressions in the workplace, something like that. And you're out there with a sign that's saying no more microaggressions in the workplace, and you're speaking on the microaggression on like, because let's say we're talking about race, for example. Let's say you're speaking on these things, and you're yelling, and you're like, look at this, look at the way you're treating us. We can't take this anymore. This is not going to work. This is not. We can't let this happen anymore. We draw the line here. You need to change this. There's going to be someone in the system that's doing their job, that's paying attention, that's going to see this, and it's going to be like, you must be out your fucking mind. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about microaggressions. I go to work every day and I don't even notice them. And then that person is going to break it down for them in whatever shows they go to, and whatever is a part of their protest. And let me finish. And they're going to hear what the other side is saying without seeing it. But the next time they go to work, they're going to start noticing shit.
Okay.
They're going to start noticing shit. They're going to start questioning things. And they're going to do what they know how to do best, which is to act organized in disciplined fashion. And when those two join forces, when they reach an area of understanding, which is going to be a little less than what the person outside of the system is expecting, and a little more than what the person inside the system is used to, they can create change.
Hmm.
Those people are not useless. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do, because the people who are in the system don't have time to do it. Again, it's the intersection.
I'm trying to phrase this right. If you're talking about changes within, for example, businesses, because these issues are happening at many levels, right? So there's the cultural, everyday changes. For example,
Right.
people trying to get called by, now I'm going to an extreme right here, but people trying to get called by their fancy new pronouns,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe people who are noticing, let's say, who are noticing microaggressions, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
my issue is, if you're, it is cool to want almost anything. It is a different thing to make things happen that apply to the how, because our systems are supposed to work for the majority, right?
Right.
Okay,
That's the ideal.
that's the ideal.
Yeah.
Some of these issues that we hear the most about are not for the benefit or of the, what's it called, of the majority. You do agree with
Mm-hmm.
me on that, right? If we go
Yeah.
if we go from what's supposed to benefit the majority, from that only one parameter, whatever is being asked to happen is all must already be dismissed.
Right.
Now, I'm my issue with people doing the work part time is that you're not only is your issue not the most important issue at hand, but you're trying to impose it on things that you cannot manage. You're not able. You want to be a catalyst, but you do not want to be the person managing those things on a daily basis. You see those people who are part of the established systems are the
Right.
people who show up on a daily basis without passion to do the work. The people who want to guide them in, and those are the people who pay your taxes. Those are the people who work on your bridges.
We
Those are the
appreciate
people.
y'all.
Those are the people who do the annoying work that all most of us creatives don't want to do, right?
Right.
And us as more liberal and more progressive types, we want to scream at people like, change this. The world is not good. Do this, do that. But we want to only take part of the fun part of it. Going out there and protest in a group is fun. Going out there and riot low key.
Nah, bro.
No, 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 no.
It
Cause
might
if Cause my issue, the
people
reason.
might join in on the fun, as you call it, when it gets safe. But the people who start protests are very aware of the fact that it might not turn out the way they expected.
You see,
Our original protesters were doing it at times when that meant they could get killed. Okay, so like I'm not gonna diminish
no, no,
the,
no.
the
The
work
reason why
they're
I'm saying
doing.
they're doing it only in times when it's fun is because if the issue was that solid, they would like you can notice when an issue is serious to people, they defend it whether they're alone or not. They make it a point, right? Whereas if we're only arguing about an issue when we feel safe about it, because the whole issue is that the whole thing when we start like going out there to scream about it is because we've had enough. And if I've
Yeah,
had enough, it means I've had enough as a person and we've had enough as a group. That means
right,
when you see me by myself, I've had enough. And when you see
right,
me with my friends, we've had enough. But in a lot of
right.
these issues, why is it that, for example, and that's another tangent I'm taking. Why is it, for example, that all the big marches, right, about somebody being murdered by the police or everything only happens around election times and only happens when it's a person of authority in the white race that happens to kill somebody in our community? That these marches happen. Young Dolph just got killed, right?
Yeah,
Almost nobody even made that an issue of like the insecurity in our communities. Nobody went out there and said a word. We just posted good messages about, oh, we shouldn't be doing this to one another, right? Whereas we more deaths in that specific topic, more deaths have come.
who would okay, because we're talking about protests here, and that's a thing that's kind of interesting about the like every time someone brings up the black on black crime argument in a
No, no,
conversation
no,
like
no.
this,
It's not. I'm not.
because
That's not where I'm
that's what it
taking it.
is. That
That
was
I'm
it.
taking it.
It
That's
was
just
implied.
trying. It's just
It was
trying.
implied.
But
It was
when
implied
no, no, no,
because
no, 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 no.
because you talked about
Because
because
I'm very
I'm gonna
familiar with the term
I'm
of
gonna re,
black
I'm
on
gonna
black crime.
retrace. I'm gonna retrace what you said. You said, "Why is it that the only times we're outside is around election time when it's a person of authority, especially a white person that's killing one of us, and yet when young Dolph was killed, we're just posting good messages." So
Okay.
you're comparing the scenario of white authority on black murder versus black murder.
I'm comparing the selective outrage. That's what I'm talking about.
It's not so much. It's not the thing is it's not selective outrage because
It
one of the things that I
is. It
because no because the
is.
thing because
These niggas shoot at houses with babies and grandmother in the houses, and we
what
say
was
that's just street life.
what was the reaction to young Dolph's death?
A couple of
What
his
did
IG posts.
no? What did the people in the community say? What did the people who are the celebrities that people look up to say? What were they saying? Were they saying rest in peace, or were they just saying rest in peace, or were they saying this man, may this man rest in peace, and we need to stop treating each other like that, and the way we murder each other in our communities doesn't make sense, and it's a problem. It raised the discussion. I know because I pay attention. I pay close attention to what's being said. The reaction to Young Dolph's death in the community overall was outrage.
Bruh,
But the difference
bruh,
between that, listen,
bruh.
the
You
difference
see,
between
that's
that, the
that's
difference,
that's where that's where
let me
I
finish
find
the
it.
point. Let me finish the point. Let me
Go
finish
ahead.
the point. The difference between that and something that will be happening if, for example, he had been killed by a cop, or if he had been killed by anything that's a representation of the government, is that we're talking to them. If we're talking to each other, you're only going to hear this in the circles where we talk to each other, right? Because you're not going to go to the White House, to the White House, to argue about black on black violence, because they're not even the people you need to talk to about this. You
Actually,
got to
they
talk.
are.
You got to
Actually, they
know.
are.
No, like they're not the people you need to talk. So you're gonna go to them and be like, coming, hey, we need you to go in here and motherfucking like talk to all those people so they can understand that we need to stop killing each
No,
other.
no,
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 we're
no.
gonna
Because
we're
no,
gonna do that
you
work.
see, that's a satirical approach. Because
Like we're
I would say, how about you make this a dry county? How about you close all these gun stores? Like you write legislations to close these stores. How about you improve the quality of the schools in the
that
community?
effort is ongoing. There are neighborhood
No, yeah,
organizations.
yeah,
There are groups
I
who are
agree.
actively doing that.
I agree. Like I understand that it's being done, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about the energy that is being like I'm talking about energy levels. Like my issue here is about energy levels, right? It's like basically this is what I'm saying. It's we're in the house. Your little brother smacks you in the face, right? And you're
Oh
outside
boy,
and some
that boy is
random
getting
dude,
smacked back.
yeah, you're gonna smack him back, right? You're
Yeah.
gonna teach him who's the big boss in the house.
Oh no,
Now
this ain't
let's
about big boss no more. Since you tough, nigga, we're gonna have to figure it out after this fight. That's it.
exactly. But you see, like this is about like getting an understanding with your little brother, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about the dude when you're out in a club with your girlfriend, like some
Right.
random dude just comes up to you and fucking smack the shit out your girlfriend or like punches the shit out of you. You're
Why would a
not
nigga ever
yeah,
do
you're
that
not
shit?
going to
But yeah,
scrap like it was your little brother,
right.
right? You're coming with all guns blazing, end of the world type shit. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's
That's like,
and that's what I'm saying. Like we got to acknowledge that we're behaving in a very preferential way. We're
well,
not
you're
we're not
well.
coming with the full weight of our motivation to make change within
I
ourselves. We
I
only
find that
bring that energy to others.
I find the scenario you're using very interesting because it doesn't even work in favor of your argument. Like the
It's a very bad
like
example, but I'm
because
trying to like get you to
it's very
gauge
no, but it's
the
very
energy
realistic.
levels.
It's very realistic. I wouldn't even have gone as far as like being in the club with your partner and someone doing something like that. I'm taking if my brother smacks me in the face in the house, right?
Yeah,
What's the likeliest thing to happen is I'll smack him back, we'll scrap, and then we'll have dinner. That's
yeah,
what's gonna happen.
fantastic.
Maybe we don't talk to each other for 1 to 2 days, but
No big
then
deal.
we'll be like, fuck it, let's have dinner. You know what I'm saying? Somebody smacks my little brother outside of the house. I'm getting my cousins. We're going out there because for
Exactly.
very for very but you have to understand that you have to understand what's implied. You have to understand that context is very important. The reason why if I scrap with my little brother, the likeliest thing to happen is that we're just gonna have dinner, is because we live together and there's a bond between my brother and I that is different. There are things that he's not gonna be expecting from me, and there's a level of aggression. Basically, there's a way that we can talk to each other that doesn't necessitate that doesn't necessitate the level of like intention and the level of like basically if I fight my little brother and we end up having dinner, it's because we're probably gonna fight again someday. And it is what it is. We're not gonna kill each other, we're gonna fight. You know what I'm saying? Now, my little brother makes it clear he's trying to kill me, we have a different situation there.
I do agree. I do
But
agree.
but until that happens, we're a part of the same corpus.
I do.
The problem with someone smacking my little brother outside of the house is that I'm not just going out because he smacked my little brother out of the house. I'm not just I'm not just smacking that guy and making sure that we're taking care of him. So because of the fight that happened with my little brother and that I don't think my little brother can handle himself, I'm doing it because now I have to make an example out of that guy.
I
Because
agree.
now I have to make it clear that not just my little brother, but me and anyone in our circle should not be touched in that way, and we will not tolerate that.
I
Because if
agree.
we let that happen, you're going to take it further. Today you smack him, tomorrow you take his money, and the next day you take his house.
Yes, sir. I am in agreement with you 100%. Now, if we only blow that little household problem to the level of a country, right, with all the intricacies that get involved, the house is the country. The cup that killed one dude or another is like the brother who it's I understand that it's not the right wording and it might be outrageous, but it's like the brother who has beaten his brother. Now we will say, oh no, somebody died in this situation, but we're talking about the context of a country. We're talking
You're
about
saying, you said, hold on, let me try to understand what you're saying. You're
I'm
saying the
saying
cut.
brother beating
You're,
brother in the context of a country between a cop and a citizen. The cop making a mistake may be the person dying.
no, that's not it. That's not, no, it's not comparable.
It
It's not,
is. It is
no, it's
completely
not, no,
because
it's not comparable because in the scenario you're using, like, for example, a brother and a brother, they're brothers. The nature of their bond is that they were born in the same house. That argument would only be valid if that motherfucking cop wasn't on duty.
no, 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 no.
Yes,
You are
because
born in the
the
same country. That is your
that nah
brotherhood. That is your
the,
bond. Because if
the
an
roles the
if an
roles no
external
the roles
if North
diverge.
Korea, check this out. If North Korea comes and attack America right now, right now, those same people who are saying fuck the police are going to run to the first police officer's house and say, where are the guns, let's fight together. Don't
Well,
if
yes, obviously a
that's
larger
what I'm
issue.
saying.
The same
That in
way
the
that
big,
no,
yeah,
but the same way it doesn't scale up the way you think it does. Because even if the same North Korea that you're talking about, if we have some kind of space invasion scenario, they're also going to bond with the
exactly.
U.S. to deal
Then
with
we're
it.
scaling
Which
the
way,
house as the
which
planet.
makes exactly you gotta address the situation at the scale at which it's existing.
And
This is not what we're talking about.
we
It's
are
not.
talking
It's not.
about
We can't scale it that way because it's not what we're talking about. Your argument, the closest thing to your argument
we
would be the closest thing to your argument would be to have people in the house, like you have brothers, like you're taking brothers as an example. For your example to work, for example, they couldn't be brothers. They would have to be roommates or some shit. So your thing would be more a situation. So your thing would be more the kind of situation where in a building that's like a condominium building or whatever the
okay,
fuck whatever the fuck it is, people live in homes, they share
okay,
the same realities, they share the same space, and then some people are responsible for the security of those people. That person, let's say the person lives in the building too, right? Let's say that motherfucker has an apartment in the building too. You're supposed to come deal with a situation that's happening between two tenants or with a tenant. And in the middle of that situation, where you have authority and where the power to kill and the power of aggression is in your hands, which we are giving you because you're supposed to deal with extreme situations. You use that power to kill somebody. You use that power to kill somebody that you were supposed to protect. Your responsibility to that person is different. It's
But
not the same as if,
no.
for
You have to
example,
understand.
two tenants are fighting.
When it comes to that level of, because with each level of authority comes a different level of monopoly over on violence, right?
That's a horrible argument.
When we're talking about tenants, the way the laws of the country where we all agree to live, whether you came here of your own free will or you came here as an import, right? The laws under which we decide to live is that a police officer has that discretion to commit to choose to kill or not kill, and he has to justify that later and be judged for that later. Now, whether he's judged properly or not, that's a matter of justice, right? Whether justice is being carried properly or not, and that's a different problem. But I'm
See, and
saying
that,
that if you're in the same country, the power dynamics between the two of you, you're still tied together by the bond of countrymen. That if there's a threat to you collectively, you have to defend each other, right? But
and then when you
but
become the threat, and when you become the threat, you're like cancer. We have to deal with you.
no.
We have to deal with you. And
You
here's and
see,
that, that
those are
that's why
absolute statements. Those are
that's why
absolute statements because
that's
that's not how
that's why
authority
when
behaves.
that but that's the but here's the thing, like it is it is our it, part of functioning in the same environment is knowing when you need to question the environment. You're telling me, for example, that legally, as we've established this country, or as this country was established, this guy has a right to do what he just did. So you tell me that, right? No, no, no. Because let me finish. Let me because that's basically what you were saying. It's like the way
I
country
say
was established.
it's within his legal prerogatives to
That's
make
exactly
that
what I.
arbitrary decision.
That's exactly what I just said. Legally, he's allowed to do what he just did.
No,
Like so, he
it's
is.
within. Okay, let me say it this way. It's within the array of choices that he can make at that moment,
So
right?
legally, he's allowed to do what he just did.
It's legally
He's allowed to do what he just did.
legally he's let's go with that. Legally
Yeah.
he's allowed to,
Legally, he's
if
allowed to do what he
required,
just.
if required.
Legally, we're like it's like every all the is
bro
that happen
bro
after.
legally the army, the legally the your banker can take your money. Legally your politician can take over your country. Legally your police officer can arrest you. Legally, what else? Legally your doctor could kill you.
And here are the two flaws with what you're presenting right here. Number one, the first thing that I was gonna address anyways is that when something is by law authorized, it is our job to figure out the point when we're supposed to question the fact that it's authorized at all. If you're allowed to do this legally, if the reason why you're getting away with this is that when we look at the law and when you are observed through the filter of the law, you're allowed to do this, then we got to talk about that law. We got to start talking about that law because there's a problem there.
You see, the
Remember,
world is not kumbaya, my brother.
remember, Kofi. Remember, they were legally allowed to own slaves. The
Okay.
law, the law is not always right, and there's a point where, as a society, we need to start discussing how well the law is working for society. And it's gonna
Okay.
take. It might take some time. It might take 100, 150 years for someone or a group of people to be like, "Hey, why the fuck is that shit legal?" Like what? Like because once something happens too many times, and you're like, "Yo, why does this keep happening? This is a problem." And you're like, "Well, it's legal." And then as a society, we're like, "Hey, well, maybe it shouldn't be."
You see,
That's number
that's
one.
yeah.
Number two. The biggest problem we're having with what's going on with the example that you're talking about with the cops, with the example where the cops are found guilty of some of these actions, it's not so much that um, I mean, the part where they're even allowed to make to make that decision so arbitrarily that we end up with the situations we end up with is its own problem. But the biggest problem and the reason why people are out there is that those people walk away scot free. There are no consequences. It's because of the amount of times when it's because by default because you're telling them all you have to do is justify it. They always have a way to
Bro,
justify
that's why the law is written that way. That's why even when we have the worst people in society, they still get a legal defense. Or it would be like back home when a dude steals, or we suspect somebody to steal of stealing, and then we just kill him right away. If we want to be in a society that has laws, we have to give those evil people the benefit of being judged and the possible chance of them getting away with the crime.
and
Now, I'm not
then
saying
and then
that.
as a society we have to be good at determining when our justice system is not equipped to judge those people properly.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is we shouldn't be taken lightly the fact that we are the people who've
People
been
are,
doing this human thing the best in history, as far as we know, as far as I know, at least,
yeah, that
right?
no, that's cool, and that's cool and dandy, and all appreciation to that. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate what's good with the society that I'm having, but the conversation is not always that. And I think that it's very manipulative to decide that when people are complaining about something, it means they have no appreciation for everything that's going well. You cannot tell someone who has a broken knee that they should appreciate the fact that the rest of their body works properly, because that's what they need to address right now. What they need to address right now is that that fucking knee is broken. My knee is broken.
Bro,
I
bro,
can do
bro.
something
How
about
about
this.
this? How about this? Should I tell you to not appreciate your health right now because you're broke?
That's not. It's not comparable.
Bruh, come on. Come
It's
on.
not
We're
comparable.
comparing we're comparing things that make our lives better, right?
No, no, no. It's not because the situation we're talking about, right? Because we're talking about when we need to start questioning laws. Your response to that is that with all the questioning that we're doing, we got to be careful not to forget that we're the version of society that's living under the quote unquote best conditions, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about, and I'm telling you
Yeah.
that we don't have to have all the conversations at once. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. Someone telling you there's something wrong is not telling you that nothing else is working. They're telling you that one thing is wrong. And when your response to that is, but everything else is working, you're ignoring what they're telling you. And
Okay.
now you're starting to gaslight the argument
No, 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 no. Okay.
because
Okay.
the, because one does not negate the other.
I
I can
see.
I can tell you that the house is beautiful and we have running water that we can actually drink, and there's food and there's everything, but we have a problem with the heating system. That motherfucker gets too hot, and at night everyone's sweating, and one of them kids might die because of that shit. If I tell you some shit like that and you're like, well, the fridge is full, isn't it? It's like, okay, what the fuck does that do about the heating problem?
Okay. How about this, right? I it's not that I disagree with what you're saying at all. I'm just saying the way I'm trying to phrase this is that there will always there will always be things that have to be fixed. No matter how good we are at writing better laws and are at enforcing them, it's just this same curve. We will fix things and get to a place where we see other things to be fixed. We see other things to be fixed. The issue that, not the issue, what I'm saying that we need to think about in a practical sense is how fast progress is happening and what are we sacrificing for that progress. And that's what we need to
Well,
pay attention to. a
there's
lot of
there's
the
always
people a, a lot of the people who are asking for progress do not grasp, in my opinion at least, do not grasp exactly what that progress involves. They just want things to change. For
yeah,
example,
because that's what they're here for. Just like, for example, when your nerves, like, think about your body, right?
yeah,
There is a portion of your body
Mm-hmm.
whose only job, which is your nervous system, whose only job it is to feel things.
Yeah.
That's the only job nerves have in your body.
Yeah.
You hit something, they communicate pain to the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Something feels good, they communicate pleasure to the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Something feels a little hot, a little like they just tell you, hey, this is how this feels right now. That's the role. In a
Mm-hmm.
society, we have those people who are like our nervous system.
Yeah.
Their job is to alert us and to
Mm-hmm.
let us know where we are.
Yeah.
If you remember what started this conversation, I was telling you that because we were talking about the feminist movements.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling you that where there might be moments when things get excessive, and I always any movement at all, revolutionary movement that I agree with or not, I say the same thing too. It's like there will be a point where the excesses will defeat the point you're trying to make. Uh, but my original point was that the core argument is valid. What they're saying is wrong with society is true. How we go about changing that and how we go about addressing that is where the general conversation is going to happen. My
Yeah.
point wasn't that progress should happen fast or that it should happen the fastest. It wasn't about the pace of progress. It was about the necessity of it and about the problem that exists when people who don't want the kind of progress that is being asked for to happen start using excesses as a reason to negate the whole movement. It's cowardly, it's manipulative, and it's usually wrong. You can't tell people who are asking for, like, you can tell people who are asking for change that what they're asking for is not going to happen immediately. That's fair. It takes time. We have to figure out how we do this as a society. It's inevitable. Whether you tell them or not, that's what's going to happen. Unless they destroy society and they're just going to run into the same problems that every society that had to rebuild runs into. It's going to take time, basically.
Yeah.
Where I have a problem is when the idea that things take time is used as a reason to silence those people. Where it's like, oh, you shouldn't be saying what you're saying. It's like, no, they
No,
should be saying what they're saying. That's their role.
no, I mean, you see that is what I don't have a problem with, because saying that they shouldn't be doing that is kind of like, not, it's kind of, it's against free speech. That's just straight up against free speech, and everybody should be expressing what they want to see, because the whole thing is that we have to keep the conversation going, right?
Yeah.
What my issue is not with the conversation, but it's with action. We all
Such
know,
as,
we can all point at what's wrong, right? What I'm saying is, who is supposed to do the work? Me, like, I can understand people who come and just point at problems. That's cool. We can do that all day. But you and I will agree that we will take what's it called? Constructive criticism over criticism alone, right?
yeah, yeah. But our role is and again, that's what I keep telling you about the intersection of things. It's like people play different roles in this here game. Like, have you ever thought about the fact that maybe some of the
Mm-hmm.
people, like the people who point at everything that's wrong with society, and it feels like that's all they're doing, they can get annoying. Don't get me wrong. I have some of them, like, that I love dearly, and sometimes I'm just like, damn, and sometimes I'm that person myself, where
Yeah.
all I do is point fingers. But have you ever tried to think about the amount of the amount of energy it requires for someone to be doing that? The amount of time it takes for you to even observe society well enough to determine what's really wrong with it, and to actually and to actually put words behind it to the point that you're saying it, and to actually make your action to let everyone know that there's something wrong. Because again, if you're working in a system, you don't have time. If you're working in a system, on top of depending on the system, and on top of having to play nice with the system at all times, you don't have time to do that. So
but you see,
what if, for example, part of the progress we need, right? Part of progress that will happen with society comes directly from the fact that we need to point at what's going, at what's not going the right way, right? But we have a society where all people are doing is doing things without questioning them. Are they not failing at part of their job as a human,
oh
as a
no, I mean that's why we need.
and that's why we need to, and that's why we need to stop being that's why we need to stop being so petty with the whole, oh, but that's all you're doing. Like, there are times when it's really like, yeah, but that's all you're doing. But at the same time, we play different roles.
No, no.
Some
You see
people,
that this is where my issue is, right? We play different roles, but if you're not playing the other person's role, be careful about telling them that change needs to happen quickly because they play the role where they know the pace of things.
no, of course, and
You know,
again,
and that and that's and
my
yeah.
argument is never with how quickly change needs to happen,
Okay.
because that's process. It's a different story.
Yeah.
And that's not even what started this conversation. It wasn't the pace of change.
Yeah.
It's whether or not people should be asking for it. And
My-
they should always be asking
they
for
should
it.
always. I think that I understand you better now because I I think I understand you better because my issue is not with people saying this is wrong, that is wrong. Like, because me from a purely intellectual standpoint, I can argue both points with because they have very good merits, right? But my issue has always been about how little people who not how little, how rushed and how authoritatively people who want change approach change makers. Now, I'm not saying that those change makers may not be corrupted. I'm not saying that the system is even righteous. I'm not saying that at all because there's a
Right.
lot of change that needs to be made. Some of these people are legitimately corrupted, run to the core, and some of them are pure evil, point blank, period. And a lot of the things that have happened in society lately has not been good or righteous for anybody. But I'm saying we should be careful, and that's where my only problem is. We should be careful rushing things because we want change. Because I feel like a lot of these people are starving for uh like they're starting that's another tangent. I'm not going to take that. I just feel like some of these people just want things fast. We live in this era where everybody wants everything at Amazon speed.
Well, now it's not just now. It's human to want things fast.
Yeah, no, no, and
It's
that's
human
everybody.
because
Even
think about it. Like, anytime you realize something needs to happen, part of you is going to want it to happen right now. It's just not going to.
yeah,
The same way, for example, you want people to understand immediately that they need to stop wanting things fast, and that's just not going to happen immediately either.
I
It's
agree.
going to take it's going to take the time it takes. Like, there's the idea being spoken into existence, and then there's the process that leads to that idea actually materializing in the real world. That's going to take the time it takes.
Yeah,
And my problem is when, because this is the process, we know this is the process, we understand this is the process, we understand that people are going to want things now, because when you have an itch, you want to scratch until it's gone. It's human. We can't condemn people for that. And it's the problem when pointing that out, when that portion of everything that's happening becomes the conversation. Like, we're not even talking about the issue anymore. We're talking about the fact that you don't like that I'm telling you about the issue, or you don't like that I'm telling you, that I keep telling you that change keeps happening.
then on that I agree with you 1,000%.
Yeah,
No, nobody
it's
should
a
be telling nobody
not
where to
only
point at.
is it a waste of everyone's time. It's, I
It's
mean,
disingenuous.
at first it feels like a waste of everyone's time, right? Where it's like, you're being silly. That's not what we should be talking about. But very quickly you realize that that response in itself is very intentional. You are willingly wasting my time because you don't want this to change.
But okay, but do you agree that a lot of the change that some people ask for is silly?
What do you mean silly?
You can agree with me, for example, that your child, for example, coming home and saying, "Dad, I want to be Spider-Man," is
Right,
silly, right?
right. It's not silly. It's what they believe in that moment.
No, it's what they believe. But
Yeah,
in the actual scheme of your father managing your house, making sure bills are paid, making sure that you're safe, that does not even fit in his top 100 serious things, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And it's not even in the top 100 for your
I'm not.
family as a whole.
Yeah, usually it's gonna be like, you want to be Spider-Man? Okay,
Right, I might buy you just exactly. Okay, that's the
like, yeah,
nice part. Or if I'm going extra tomorrow, I'll buy you a suit
yeah.
somewhere.
I'll get you a costume. We'll go watch
Exactly.
Spider-Man.
Live your life. Jump off something, hurt yourself. That's
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
fix
yeah.
that later.
Yeah,
But
Spider-Man is cool. Why do you want to be Spider-Man? What is it you like so much about Spider-Man? Yeah.
exactly. So
Why not Batman?
that's what I'm saying, that these from the standpoint of these institutions,
Right.
it's it's kind of been in their DNA to identify it's okay. It's the same reason why, for example, things like, if you forget about the conspiracy that America did it, if you consider 9/11, for example, it's because they couldn't filter all those informations that were coming in, because you're getting a call of, oh, this is a terrorist, that is a terrorist, that is a terrorist, and only one of those
Right.
calls may be the actual call you need to pay attention to. And
Right.
that's one of my issues with people who are asking for progress, because cases for progress are coming from everywhere, but the progress
No,
that
they're
actually,
coming.
yeah,
They're coming. They are coming from every angle. But if I was to take your argument of, I mean, your scenario with the kid who wants to be Spider-Man, you want to be Spider-Man, cool. I won't kill your dreams and all that. Just don't jump off no fucking buildings, and you know, don't be too sad if you don't see webs coming out your body. Because like, them shit's probably not gonna happen. It's a
yeah,
comic. Uh, and it's like, have fun with it. I'll buy you the costume. I'll entertain it. I want to know why you want to be Spider-Man. I'm curious because,
yeah,
as a
yeah.
matter of fact, why would you pick Spider-Man, not Iron Man? Iron Man's cool as shit. Anyways, like, I'll entertain it. But
But you
here's
would entertain that if only if you have
but
like
here's
two or
but
three
here
kids. If you have
yeah
10
but
of
here
those
but
little
here's but
brats,
no but here's the thing. The problem starts, and that's where people misunderstand the argument of, because the thing that I think about first is like trans people, or people who don't have or people whose social or orientation sexual orientation are not what, for example, the society they grew up in is what the society they grew up in believes in. Of course, trans issues and things that have to do with sexual orientation are very different, but you see my point. Let's say we're talking about that, and that kid in the Spider-Man suit is, for example, a representation of that. The problem doesn't start with whether or not I believe what the kid is believing. It doesn't start with the kid telling me to, like, you're a kid who's coming to me telling me you're Spider-Man. Maybe I don't believe you're Spider-Man, and for every reason in the book that I know of, I don't think you can become Spider-Man. That, like, let's say that's where you stand. As long as you're able to do that and leave that fucking kid be Spider-Man alone for as long as he wants, I'm fine. The problem starts when you're starting to go after that kid for saying he's Spider-Man. The problem starts when you start to create systems that make where not only do you try to silence the kid for being Spider-Man, but you start to silence almost everything that has to do with that kid, because that kid wants to openly just be fucking Spider-Man. It's like, at best, you go with it and you're like, fuck it, motherfucker, you're Spider-Man now. And at worst, it should be a thing where you're like, yeah, I don't think you're Spider-Man, but whose problem is it?
but 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 you
And
see,
we have a problem. Like, let's say, for example, that fucking kid, I comes to you and tells you he's your kid and is like, hey, I want to be Spider-Man. I think I can be Spider-Man now. and you're like, yes, you can't be my son no more.
You see, that's slightly a slight oversimplification. A
It's no,
slight
it's no, it's no,
oversimplification.
because you chose that scenario. I didn't choose
No,
that
no,
scenario for you.
no,
You
because
chose
you
you
see,
chose that
it's
scenario.
not. You
And
see,
and and here's and here's the
now you're
thing.
being too literal, sir.
No, I don't feel as though I'm being too little. I'm taking your scenario and I'm playing that game.
Okay,
It's
okay.
the problem.
Then let's take let's.
The thing people are complaining about is not so much how you feel about what they identify with or who they identify as. It's that you feel the need to suppress them for it.
No.
That's where there is a problem.
Check this out.
Things have.
Check this out. If you, as soon as you manifest anything in the world, there will be opposition to it. You pretending that you can manifest anything in the world and not want it challenged is silly. For example, you are an artist, right? Do you
Right.
want, are you, do you want to exist in a land world where everybody tells you be an artist. Hey, it's all good. Or you understand that realistically there are going to be people out there telling you you suck at this. Whether you suck at it or not. There are going to be those people and you're okay with them be out there, right?
No, they're gonna tell me they're gonna tell me I suck at it. They ain't gonna try to kill me for it though.
Okay.
They ain't gonna stop me from they ain't
Okay.
gonna stop me from getting a job because I'm an artist. They ain't gonna stop me.
Oh
They're not
no,
gonna
no, no.
tell me
They will
that
stop you.
they're
They will
they're
stop
not.
you.
No, they're
You don't have the history on your resume of doing a
no. If I
corporate
if I
job in the
no if I
past
if I
five
want to
years.
if I have the credentials for the job and I go after the job, ain't nobody gonna fuck with me because I'm an artist.
Trust me. Trust
Ain't
me.
nobody, ain't nobody none. Like let's be
The gap
serious.
on
No
you do
one, no
you
one,
will
no
have
one is
to.
out. No one is out here. No one is out here spending time, energy, and putting literal religious beliefs and entire organization. An entire organization is behind stopping me from existing.
No, no,
Period.
no, no, no. You see,
No one's,
you
no
see,
one's doing that for the sake of me being an
you're
artist.
oversimplifying the issue.
I'm using your scenario
No, no,
because you're saying
you're
because
using
you're
my
saying
scenario because it's extremely simple. I'm using it to simplify a complex issue. For
yeah.
example,
So let's talk.
no, no,
So let's
no.
talk about it in
Your
simple
kid.
terms.
Okay, let's take the Spider-Man kid, right? Your
Yeah.
kid weren't telling you that he's okay wearing a Spider-Man suit, and your
Right.
kid, and let's say it's the same 6 year old. Let's say it's a 6 year old, and your
Right.
same 6 year old telling you that he's getting fisted at work by his classmate are not the same things. You understand that it needs more. It needs more like it needs this issue then needs to be more detailed, like a
Yeah,
quirk.
because scenario number two is your kid. Scenario number two involves your kid one having something being done to them. Two, it involves a portion of that kid. It involves a portion of that kid's life that even biologically
Yeah,
they're not fully equipped to address yet. For example, we know that kids can't give consent, right?
I can say
Like
the same thing
that.
about Spider-Man.
What do you mean you can say the same thing about Spider-Man? Like
mentally
at best that
mentally
kid.
mentally he's been his perception of who he is has been influenced by something he's seen on TV.
Yeah, of
now
course.
now he
But
interprets
who's
his reality to a delusion.
but
You
who's do,
understand me?
who's
Like,
doing what? Who's doing what? No, the example of that, like what you're talking about, like what the scenario that you use with the kid getting horrible. I don't even know why you picked that example, but
because it's
it's something
horrible.
happening because there's no reason to even go there. But the kid who something happens to at work, it's a different scenario because it's something at school. It's something that is happening to them. It's something that another human being in the reality that they function in, where they're supposed to be safe, something is being done to them, and that thing is a threat. The version of what you're talking about that applies to the Spider-Man kid would be that kid coming back and saying, "Hey, Dad, I was Spider-Man, and and I was out there fighting villains, and this fucking teacher beat the shit out of me because he's a villain. That's what that's your scenario. It's like
let,
your
let,
kid is out there. Your kid is out there getting in fights as Spider-Man as a 6 year old. Now you have to step in and be like, okay, yeah, we got to deal with this because there's action.
let me tell you what
It doesn't
I use
scale.
that example specifically,
It
right?
doesn't scale.
It
It doesn't
actually
scale.
it does. Actually,
No.
it does because there's an actual real story of a kid watching the Superman movie, right?
Right.
In the city where my family is originally from. Watched the
Right.
Superman movie, climbed an electrical pole, and put his hand on the transformer. That shit almost killed him. He's now
Hmm.
he fell from the pole and he's now completely sterile. His body, I mean, he had like 3-degree burns all over his body and shit.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
face
Yeah.
changed.
and
Now,
and then and then to go with your line of thinking, I'm guessing Superman as a movie was banned from that house forever, right?
no. It
No,
wasn't.
exactly.
Listen,
Exactly. That kid, that kid had
allow me to
that
finish.
kid
Allow
had
me to
third
finish
degree
my
burns.
argument.
That movie still
Allow me
exists.
to finish my argument, right? That's why, for example, in front of certain movies, they put parental advisory, right?
Right,
They don't
right.
want to let it's not properly enforced, but they don't want children to be influenced by certain ideas, even though I personally think that it's very hypocritical because you still letting your kids watch Cinderella, which in my opinion is just as damaging, but that's a different story. I'm saying that in both cases, we decide to evaluate risk differently. We evaluate that the fact that the kid wants to wear the Spider-Man suit is not that terrible, but it could be extremely terrible for him. For example, the first time I
Actually,
watched Spider-Man, I literally found a spider, put that motherfucker on my arm and try to play with it so it could bite me, right? Now I could have got poisoned, right? Somebody would say, "Oh, Kofi likes Spider-Man. That's cool." Kofi's now in his bedroom, paralyzed or dead over Spider-Man. It was cool the
Kofi,
whole time. Nobody could have
Kofi,
anticipated that.
Kofi died for what he believed in.
Exactly.
but
From some
nah, but
stupid shit.
but nah, but here's the thing is that what you're saying about the possible threat. First of all, it's such a minimal, and I mean minimal
I
threat
do
in the sense
agree.
that
Like
in
the
sense that in the sense that the percentage of the population that this would even happen to is so fucking small. The number one. Number two is even when it does happen, ain't no ain't nobody writing like entire think pieces about motherfucking like, hey, we should motherfucking kill the filmmakers and ban superhero movies
no,
forever.
oh no.
You
We don't
see,
even talk
you see,
about those
no,
things.
we barely talk. It's like, hey, this kid thought he was Spider Man. He jumped
His
from building.
parents should do
God,
better. Fuck
it's
it.
like, damn, I feel bad for his parents. Is he okay? Yeah, I bet. You hear about the new Spider Man movie that's coming out? By the way, now that you're mentioning that, there's a new Spider Man movie. You want to go see it? Yeah, absolutely,
Done.
sure. Because you understand that what happened, even though somewhere in that scenario that somewhere in that scenario, what's it called? Um, something bad ended up happening. You're not blaming the entire construct on what happened to the kid. It was the kid's interpretation of what was that ended up like leading to that. You're not sitting here saying Spider-Man is bad as a movie. As a matter of fact, you're probably not sitting here saying Superman is bad for society.
No, I'm not saying that.
Exactly. So what I'm talking about when I say like people have a reason, the people who are who what you call identity politics and all these things talking about oppression, when they talk about oppression, they're talking about real consequences that happen after what you were talking about. They're the version of that story where people are outside with pitchforks looking for the people who made that Superman movie. They're the version of that story where people are going to stores and telling people you shouldn't sell Superman and Spider-Man costumes because the kids are going to jump off buildings. They're the people. There's a whole effort there would have to be a whole effort to
But you see
suppress the thing for
that
it to
is
scale.
okay.
That's why I'm saying it doesn't scale.
Why I'm saying that, why I believe that it does is because people evaluate threat differently, right? The same, for example, somebody may find, uh, let's use another example, and this is another silly example. So don't be too attached to the base
Yeah.
example. But let's say you have a 15-year-old daughter, right? You know how some parents are super relaxed with how late their kids come home, and some
Mm-hmm.
parents just won't let you come. I mean, they want you in the house before 6 p.m., right?
Mm-hmm.
In both cases, the parents are looking at potentially the same risk, and they're evaluating the possible outcome differently. One parent sees it as my kid may be kidnapped or raped or whatever may happen, and the other one is like, I want my child to be more independent and have more freedom, and I want my child to know that I trust them. Both are looking at the same risk and are taking different decisions. It's the same thing with the Spider-Man thing, in a
Mm-hmm.
way that two parents, one parent, in one case, the kid is saying, I want to be Spider-Man, and the parent is so stuck up that they're like, oh no, that's white people's bad spirits. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
parent is like, okay.
I grew up in the house. I wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter.
Exactly. Those are the
I mean,
witchcraft.
it's not that I wasn't allowed, but my parents were not. They were definitely not fans, and I was definitely not allowed to own the books. That
So,
was one thing.
yeah, you,
I
you
used to
you
have.
wasn't going to have magic books in their
I
house,
used
huh?
to. Yeah, yeah. You ain't going. You ain't about to bring that bad juju shit in my house. Like it was a whole thing where I used to get the book from one of my friends because he used to get the book as soon as it came out,
Yeah.
and I would just get the book and hide it under my. But you know, when you're a kid, you're fucking like sometimes you're fucking stupid, you know.
No,
So I
you're
read the
fucking
book.
stupid most of the
So
time.
so I read the fucking book and I take the book, I put it under my pillow. So my dad comes and says, "What are you doing?" And I'm like forcing my eyes shut and shit, like I've been sleeping the whole time. And he looks under my bed and gets the shit out, looks at it. It's like, I told you this thing is bad for your mind. It's polluting your mind, and this, that, and the other. And he'd be like, whose is it? And I'm like, yeah, it's my boy's. You know, I was like, yeah, well, you know what? I'm take this joint back, and you're gonna give it back to them. And yeah, that's the environment that I grew up in, and so I know I know how that goes, and then that's why sometimes I'm like, hey, kids will be kids, and more than anything, human beings are going to turn exactly into the kind of human beings they're going to turn into.
But your parents at that moment are responsible for the decisions that you make. So
Yeah.
for better or worse, whether they have enough understanding or not, they have to do at that moment what they understand as being the best possible decision to be taken. And it might not even be close to the best decision that must be made. But
Hmm.
a certain but like they have but if they don't follow that instinct according to who they are and according to their principles, they are actually not doing anything that's beneficial to you. I rather create, I don't know if and this loosely this does not actually apply, but i
Hmm.
rather be I rather be a very strong disciplinarian, and my child actually articulates and chooses to defend his position in spite of punishment, than be loose with discipline and my child just falling naively for anything out there. Like,
Or
we have our sisters who got, like, our friends in high school who got pregnant at 12, 13, 14, 15, and only found out about actual sex education years later.
well, well,
You know what I mean? Like,
well.
like I,
The the people in your comments are asking to transition to French, so I'm going to transition to French.
learn some English. Learn some
I'm gonna
English.
I'm gonna transition
Okay,
to
hold on,
French.
hold on, hold on. Let me do it this way. I'm going to stop this live because I posted it. I posted it in English section, and I'm just going to bring us back in French.
Okay, cool, cool, cool,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
cool,
I
cool.
learn some English, people.
Yeah.